back. All right, let's do this. So, okay, let's bring the people in. And then we can chat about a couple of things before we start talking about our work. We could talk about music or astral projection.
How's that been going?
It's actually going really well. You know me, I'm always practicing. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's cool. It's definitely strange and unusual. But I had this friend that I used to know a couple of years ago, and then she disappeared, and she came into one of my dreams. I want to say a couple of weeks ago. She literally vanished. I don't know what happened to her. She's just gone. Yeah, like she's gone.
Has anyone talked to her?
No, like that's the thing, is she just she vanished, and then I like nobody said anything. So then I started asking around, like, hey, have you seen her? Have you heard anything? And people were like, no, because she's not, well, she is on social media, but she hasn't been using it for like 2 years. So then I was like, okay, like that's kind of weird. And then I didn't think about it for a while. And then I had a dream maybe like a month or two ago, and she came in it. And I haven't thought of her in so long. And I thought, okay, well, this is quite significant because usually when people come into my dreams, they're dead. And so then I thought, I wonder if she died. Like, I wonder if like she just vanished and died. Like, it's totally possible. So then I went around and started asking people, like, hey, have you heard anything in the past couple of years? And people said, no. Like, they thought that she like ran off to India or something, and then that was it. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really seem like her. And then nobody knew anything. And then I think it was like 2 nights ago, I had another dream and she came in it, and I was like, okay, this is weird. Like something's going on. So then I tried looking online. I typed in like her name, because they have like all these like websites like Free People Search, and you can find, you know, the database for the data for anybody. So I tried doing that, and it said that her name was still registered to her old address, but there wasn't much information. So then I was like, well, let's see what the astral realm has to say. So I did that, and I saw some really weird shit. So I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. You know, I thought, well, maybe I do think she's dead.
I think it's probable.
Dead. Or she's like tied up somewhere, because when I tried the astral projection, I went into it thinking she's probably dead. And knowing her past history, maybe it was like involving drugs or alcohol. I really didn't know what to expect. But I had this vision of her, and like she was on the floor, like tied up, like crying and screaming. I don't know. But nobody knows where she is, and that's all I saw. So all I can do is wait to see if she comes in again. But yeah, I'm fully convinced that she just disappeared. She's like a 40-year-old woman that vanished. Did you make the post?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you got me running around all over the internet before we start.
Okay.
I sent this guy that link too.
Okay. Let me did you get the link?
I told him if he wants to start hopping in now, feel free. Okay, sorry, that shit's wild. Missing people.
Oh, you didn't tag me in the post.
Ah, fucking hell! I always forget something. Let me do it again.
Just screenshot it, and then like.
Oh, I can add mentions to it.
And then add my. Oh, you can.
Or wait, I don't know. Can I?
Just screenshot it, and then like add the link over it, and then my tag. Oh, there we go.
Did I do it?
Yeah. Wait, did you?
No,
Yeah. Okay, I got it.
Can you share it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, cool. Our buddy's on. Here, I'm going to bring him on.
Okay.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Hi.
Hello. I have
Hello.
like a headset, so I hope the sound is fine.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. My computer doesn't have speakers, so I have to have the headphones. She doesn't have them either.
Okay, cool. Right on.
Well,
Well-
welcome.
Thank you.
You're the first person that we've had on live, so
Cool. How exciting.
this is fun. We just came up with this idea a couple weeks ago, and then we thought, let's see who out there in the abyss would want to join this.
Awesome.
We had a couple of kids last week that wrote.
I keep calling him a kid.
our-
I do think, I feel like he told me he's like 19.
He wrote like the greatest story about the end of the world and like building a bomb out of a what was it, like a Ford truck engine?
So he decided to go the Civil War route. So he wrote an apocalyptic story about North versus South in today's age. And the Southern people built some atomic bomb using only a Ford F-150 engine, an IKEA dresser, and
That's amazing.
yeah, something else. The Anarchist Cookbook was also involved. This kid's hilarious. He did he painted this like crude little like Manson album cover painting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like the coolest dude. He's hella funny. But he's so far been the only like participant. He popped up in the chat last week, and it's always fun talking to him. He's usually drinking beer.
We did have some viewers. I think a lot of people get nervous, and it's like
For sure.
writing is like a dying art. So
Sad.
and then I feel like people are self-conscious.
I think you say that, but we could just also be boring.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like we're boring. We talk about some pretty weird shit.
Yeah.
So before you entered the chat, Matt, we were talking about astral projection.
I saw that. I had just hopped on.
Okay, yeah.
Good stuff.
I'm super into it, and we took a class together a couple months ago all about it.
Hell yeah.
It was a lot of fun. So I don't know if you have an opinion about that or if you're into that stuff.
Yeah. I'm into astral projection too. It's something I'm working on actually in my
Okay, cool.
as it were.
What do you mean by like it's something you're working on? Like what are you doing?
Yeah, so my I've been focusing on practicing a lot of the techniques from Robert Monroe, if you're familiar.
Yes. Okay. I just finished his second book, Far Journeys,
Cool.
and then I've yet to read the third book. But yes, I am a huge Monroe woman.
Yeah, I've only read his first one, Journeys Out of the Body. So I read that and then like picked up a few other ones with different practical techniques and stuff. And I don't know, I've had some I wouldn't say that I've mastered it, but I've had some limited success that's pushed me to keep going.
Yeah. No, it takes a minute. But the second book is he manages to get himself, so he gets into the second body, and then he goes even further. He does it again within the second body, and then it goes into like what's really out there, into just consciousness. And the whole book is about that. And
cool.
It's really cool. It'll really make you feel like, okay, like everything is worthless. That's what I got out of it. I read that and I was like, what is the point of anything?
It's very
But it was
liberating
so
though.
good. It was so good. What?
Oh, I said that's very liberating though to have a realization like that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Now I'm excited to read the third book. I forget what it's called. It's something Journeys, I would assume. But yeah,
Cool.
definitely recommend the second one. So, are we going to be calling you Disco, or should I address you by your real name?
I know. It's like
Does
it's like
Matt know your real name? Like,
I don't think I even do. No,
okay.
I only.
I mean, there's no one watching this. You can call me whatever at this point. My name is Rob. I just thought I watch, right, so before I started doing this, I was watching, there's like a couple like streamers. I guess they're just like commentary streamers that I was watching. You know, everyone on the internet has like names. Everyone called, you know, there's always a name. And then I watch a lot of speed runners, like video game speed runs, and they all go by names. I'm like, oh, okay, I need a fucking name. That's what I need. Is I need a name. So of course, I'm like, oh, fucking, I like disco. That's what we're gonna do. This is what it's gonna be. So that's what I ended up going with. If I ever actually did gain any kind of like following, then yeah, I'd probably start cutting off on the real name shit. But like 2 people in the world will ever see this, so I don't give a shit. You can get it. But yeah,
that, but I mean, you don't have a bad name. It's not like
it's a little
not
boring.
embarrassing.
No, it's not embarrassing. It's a little boring. It's funny. So my middle name is Anthony. Now we're really getting deep. And my whole life up until like young adulthood, I went by my middle name. It was just one of those things that my family called me Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
And then like in my 20s, I started getting into some bad habits. So I started hanging out with a lot of drug dealers. You know, drug dealers are like, dangerous. I don't want to say dangerous, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, so whenever I had to go hang out in like dingy drug houses and trap houses, I tell them I call myself Rob, because to me, Rob is like a tougher guy name than Anthony. So Rob,
yeah, but I feel like you could have taken Anthony and made it Tony, and that would have been.
Yeah, but if
that
you're
would
not,
have
but Tony's one of those names that if you're not like entirely a badass, it's one opposite end of the other. You're either Tony and you're kind of the laughing, like the joke of the group, or you're Tony and you don't fuck with Tony.
That's true.
I don't know. I just think of The Sopranos, and I feel like if you're a Tony, you got to be like a big dude.
I'm not a big dude.
I know you're tall and lanky. You're not.
I went by Tony. My first job actually as a teenager was at a pizza shack, a pizza joint in my hometown, and my boss called me Tony. And I actually used to have a blonde streak in my hair that I bleach in, so he would call me Two-Tone Tony, and that was my whole. A couple of years I spent as Tony at this pizza joint, but
that's a good mob sounding name.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a good one. Yeah, that could be in one of your stories that you write. Two-Tone Tony.
I gotta start these stories like the day, like when we're done today. I should start, because I always start like again. This is a whole like last minute story.
Okay.
And I told you I changed it. Remember, I was gonna do the whole sap fest about the ex-girlfriend. And then I was sitting
We're so
around
excited about that.
and I'll get to it because it's a great story. Well, to me, it's a great story. It's like the cheesiest fucking, like I'm playing a show and I see a girl in the crowd type shit. And but then I remembered I used to hang out with this guy named Bob, the ukulele player, and I was like, I've got to get into that one. So that's the one I went with, was my my friendship with Bob, the ukulele player, or my meeting him, basically, is what I ended up going with.
Okay, that sounds good. Cool. Yeah. No, that sounds a little more upbeat than your ex-girlfriend.
Well, the ex-girlfriend one is fun. Like, there's nothing. I don't have any bad. I'm not bummed out about it.
But isn't it sad? Is it
Why'd
sad?
it be sad?
What? Because I mean, I thought you had. I mean, you guys broke up. Was it like a big thing?
No. The reason we broke up was like I will never share the reason I broke up with her, because it's so embarrassing. I was such a fucking 19-year-old.
Now we got to know.
No, it was horrendous. It's like I'm like, it's so embarrassing. I talked to her a couple of years ago. She was really nice. I don't think she really cares to talk to me. She was really nice, but and then I follow her, but she doesn't follow me back, which is of course like the doom,
Yeah.
the doom sign. But to make excuses for myself, she is like pretty busy. She kind of travels. She's kind of a fucking hippie, right? Like a real deal hippie. So she's always like out and about. I don't think she'd really care for. I was like 19 when I was with her. Again, trying not to be bummer. I don't think she'd really care for like the person that I am now, like that I've grown in. You know what I mean? Just from what I could be totally wrong, but no, it's all like a past thing. I don't even know why. I decided this like 3 years ago that like for some reason that this is my favorite. I listen to Taylor Swift a lot, and Taylor Swift always gets me doing like rankings of ex-girlfriends, because what else do you do when you listen to Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
So I decided one day I was going to sit down and rank them. and then I kind of came up with at least a top 5. It's kind of hard after that, but I have like a top 5. You know, like most fun, like least fun, and just stupid. It's stupid, but it's fun.
So then, who's the most recent?
The most recent serious one I broke up with, or we broke up. I was 27. No, I was 26, about to turn 27. Right now I'm 30. I'm old. But then there were a couple little things here and there since then and now, but they weren't real relationships. So I usually just say the most recent actual relationship was but that was the 5-year one that I talk about a lot, just because it was 5 years. I hate people always. I'll tell stories about it. And my sister, you know, she's 14. She's like, "Oh, dude, you talk about her way too much." And I'm like, I was with her for like 5 years. Like, a lot of my stories are gonna have, you know.
Yeah.
I don't try to. I really don't care all that much. It's just my stories from that time are gonna be in, you know. Most every other girlfriend I was like 3 months. I have like a 3-month curse. It seems like with girls, it's always 3 months, and then something happens, or I usually do something wrong.
What are you doing?
God, we're turning this into. No. It's great though. So
it's interesting. That's all I'm at. You know.
So this is a goofy theory. I listened to this. God, I go so off the rails with this shit. I listened to this podcast where they like listen to Howard Stern, his old episodes and current episodes, and they try to like break him down psychologically, right?
Yeah.
There was a whole 10 series part about how Howard Stern, they think he's a narcissist. They think he has actual narcissist personality disorder.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm a narcissist. I don't think I am, you know, but I think I have some traits, because in the Howard Stern episodes, they were going over his divorce from his initial wife when he first started the show. I think her name was Allison.
Okay.
And Allison wanted nothing to do with Howard Stern after they broke up. And so the guy they had on, who was like a student learning psychology in college, he was saying that's usually like a sign of, not like a sign of narcissism, but usually people that are narcissists, when they get in relationships, by the time they break up, the person, I can't think of how to word it. Every girlfriend I've ever had, if we break up, they really want nothing to do with me. Like once we're done. And I guess that's like a thing. Like when you date a narcissist, by the time you're done, you want nothing. I have a couple ex-girlfriends that I'm still cool with. So I don't mean to make myself sound terrible. Like I'm I have a good chunk of them. After we break up, they're like, okay, you know, it's cool. Like they don't bother with the whole like we're still friends thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, maybe I'm like half Howard Stern or some bullshit, because I think too much about this stuff.
I think it's in your astrology chart from what I've seen.
Yeah, I guess.
All in there. We'd have to look at it sometime. I also thought, like, side note, a way to pull in people and viewers is we could like do mini astrology readings for people. I feel like anything free, people are like, yeah, let's do it.
That would be all you.
What?
That would be, you may not. Yeah, that would be you. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying like in the mix, like we'd spend like 5 minutes out of the hour, like, you know, answering questions. It's kind of like how I think about like when like radio shows would like bring on a psychic for like 5 minutes, and then it's like, okay, like like somebody's calling in, like caller number 1, you know.
Yeah,
that'd be funny. But anyways, we can start talking about writing. So before we begin, did you hear back from Jay at all?
Oh, I never messaged that fucking guy.
You didn't even mess. He has the greatest stories.
We start these lives, and then I've got like 20 things to do. Here, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I will.
It's okay.
I'll hit him up.
Is Jay another writer?
He's the delinquent kid with the story we mentioned in the beginning.
He's very creative. He loves monster stories like myself. Mm-hmm. He said that he wanted to write a story for this evening about werewolves.
Awesome.
Which I thought, okay, let's hear it. He wanted to write a story about like werewolves having sex, and I was like, let's do it.
Fantastic.
So that's
tell Matt about your book.
Oh yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
okay. So I've been writing a book for the past 8 months or so. It's a monster smut book. I'm super
Excellent.
into them. I don't. So before I go into that, what? So are you a writer? You're a writer, and what do
Yeah.
you do?
So my background, like career-wise, was in newspaper journalism. So I've
Okay.
some like I did news writing a lot for some small town newspapers around Sacramento, and now I'm doing technical writing, which is very dry, but actually pays me enough to survive. So I still do creative writing, and I don't know. A lot of my stuff is poetry or short story type stuff.
Wait. So are you in Sacramento?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, you're
Suburban,
right.
Oh,
You're
suburban
wrong.
Sacramento.
again, it's a good thing that no one watches this. I'm like 15 minutes away from you.
Yeah, we should kick it sometime.
Yeah, hell yeah. I was curious. You said something about Dimple Records.
Yeah, I used to work there at the one in Folsom.
Okay, I was gonna say, did you do any kind of some like writing thing for them, or did you just work there?
That was the job I had right before I got the first newspaper job I had. So
Oh, okay.
in Folsom also. But I mean, I
Was-
did some articles on Record Store Day there.
Okay, that sounds tight.
Yeah, it was,
Dimple was. I'm sure you've been to Davis then.
yeah, yeah.
The Dimple in Davis was. I am always bummed out. I'm really happy that Armadillo, like the local store, won.
Yeah,
But Dimple has everything, man. Dimple's, yeah.
yeah. It was a bummer when they closed. I am also glad Armadillo's there. Armadillo Records is great.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You're probably the most advanced out of all of us.
I
Okay.
like to write screenplay. Like I like that's my preferred like format, I guess. I like movies, and
Cool.
I like I was telling her last week, my favorite thing to write is just like dialogue between people. Like
Mhm.
when I can get a scene of like two people sitting in a backyard smoking cigarettes and they have to talk for like five. That's like my favorite shit. And then I also like, because when you write a script, you're writing like in the now tense, like it's what they're saying. Whereas I feel like sometimes when you write like books and fiction, you're kind of writing not necessarily past tense all the time, but you're kind of narrating. As far as with a script, you're just all the characters at the same time. And I don't know. I think that stuff's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, I messaged him now, by the way.
Okay.
Annie, where are you located roughly?
I'm in LA.
Oh, okay.
So
We're all in the same time zone anyway. That's cool.
Yeah. No, we're all in the same state. I met Rob last year on Instagram. I was one of his followers, one of his first followers, and then I
Cool.
thought who was this person, and then we became friends, and then we started this little club.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, we're all in the same vicinity, so we didn't know where you were. We thought
Yeah.
just guy anywhere around the world. Like, we don't know any of these people, but that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have been writing a book since like late last summer,
Cool.
and I've never written a book before, but I've always been into writing since I was a kid. So, and I passed all my English classes. That's as far as I've excelled. But it's okay. So it's a whole thing. What happened is I don't know if you've seen on Instagram, it's been trending for a while. There's a girl that rewrote Shrek. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's
have
really
not,
interesting.
I'm
this
intrigued.
this girl that I know, early last year, she published a rewrite of Shrek, and it is so nasty and amazing, and it's just written like as if she just did it in one go. It's
Well,
like
hold on. You're saying this as if it's like a proper retelling of the Shrek movie. What is the catch to it that you need?
Well, no. So yeah, I'm getting to it. So it's it's not like amazing, but the story is interesting. It's she takes Shrek and she names him Beck, And then the main girl, instead of Princess Fiona, it's Leona. And what happens is she modernizes it. It's about this girl that goes on like a women's retreat in Florida, and then she goes into the woods because she
In
gets
Florida.
bored, and then she falls into a trap, and it's like Beck's trap because he guards the fairy tale community in the forest that only the government knows about. So,
I love it
so
already.
she falls into the trap, and he's like, "Oh no, I've captured this like really hot human with like giant boobs and an ass," and
Mhm.
then he puts her in a cage, and she's like, "Oh my god, how am I going to get out of this?" So she ends up like fingering herself, which turns him on. And then the whole book, they have sex pretty much every other page. And then they fall in love and they literally get married and have kids. That's the book.
That's phenomenal.
And it's called Get in My Swamp. It's so good. It's crazy. And when you read it, I mean, I read the whole thing in a couple of hours. It's an easy read. It's like basically like third grade level reading. It's just
I'll have to look for
yeah,
that.
it's really good. It's
Phenomenal.
called Get in My Swamp. It became so popular that it was banned on Amazon for some time because it was just so nasty. But I think it's back on Amazon now. And then she wrote a second book called Stay in My Swamp, which is based off of Shrek 2.
What else?
And that one is like so basically in the fairy tale community, they have like a sex club where like all these like, characters go. And then of course, like, because I think in Shrek 2, he takes that potion to turn into a human. So in the second book, he turns into a human. And then it's like the club is run by like the fairy godmother, like in Shrek 2. And she loves the way that Beck and Leona have sex. So she's like, okay, I'm going to like pay you guys to like be performers at this club and just have sex in front of everybody. And it turns everybody on, and it's a whole thing. It's great.
Yeah, is that
So anyways, I read these books and I thought, if she can do it, I'm going to do it. So I was like, well, where do I begin? So what happened was I watched Twilight for the first time last summer, and I thought, this is great, but they're not fucking, and that's a problem. So I decided to write my own little vampiric, sex novel. And then I thought, well, who would be a great lead is, I really loved Peter Steele from Typo Negative. And, as do a lot of middle-aged women and other people. So I created a character that's kind of loosely based off of him and like a couple other people. It's kind of like a mixture of like Shrek and Twilight and Dracula all in one. And it's just like a lot of like sex scenes, and he's very possessive of her, and that's it. So anyways, this evening, because I recently finished my novel like a week or so ago, so I wrote an excerpt that I want to put in, that I needed help kind of like going over some words with you guys to see what you like and didn't like, and that's what I got. So it's not, amazing. It's literally about like possessive sex. So yeah. So that's what I'm bringing to the table this evening. And then before I read it, I'll kind of like give you guys a background of like what's going on in the story at that moment, so you can understand the context.
Cool.
Matt, what is your project? You mentioned.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been working on sort of a project for, I don't know, a couple of years now, I guess, where I've been writing short stories that are more or less based off of real life events. And I'm kind of attempting to string them all together into one sort of cohesive collection of short stories, I guess. And the sort of theme, I guess, that winds between all of them is just different experiences in different places. But the ones I'm zooming in on, as it were, are all kind of around Northern California, because that's where I've spent most of my life. Yeah, so that's kind of it. Like I'm writing them so they can stand on their own as just like a short story, but I kind of want them to be in like a little collection of sorts. I don't know if I'm going to ever try to actually have anyone else publish it or not, maybe, or maybe I'll just, keep it for my own amusement. But that's kind of what I've been working on.
That's cool.
Yeah. So like I'll change people's names and stuff. That's like, as it gets bigger, I've changed names on stuff. But other than that, most of the details are like relatively true to life, if not, allowing for exaggeration in places or whatever.
Can I ask, because you are a writer in your everyday life, do you have people in your real world that you like, friends that you talk to about writing as well? I feel like it's kind of rare nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a few. Some of my friends are like, so a few years ago, I started doing this thing with a few of my friends where we would get together and we just called it poetry night. And so like the idea would be we're inviting people who kind of a small core group of people who I know are writing their own stuff, either stories or poetry, and people who aren't, who are just interested in stuff and creative stuff and artists and whatever. And the idea was to get together and just like read a little bit of your original work. So that's a thing. We just had one like a week ago in my living room, like 8 people, I think. And that was really fun. So, yeah, there's a few people I've been trying to kind of gather around to do creative writing. Share.
That's cool.
Yeah. Other than that, I was going to a creative writing workshop over in Folsom, like, I don't know, every few months, a couple years ago. But yeah, I mean, writing can be a very lonely endeavor, because it's, you're sitting down at the end of the day, you're sitting down by yourself to do something that's just in your head and put it out there. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know many people at all in my daily life that are interested in reading and writing. So that's why I thought, well, let's create this and see if anybody out there literally in the universe would want to join, because it can be very, it's, I don't know. People don't like to read nowadays.
Yeah.
People are, obsessed with their phones and social media. So, it is a lonely thing, but that's why we're here to make magic.
Absolutely.
Ronnie, amused.
The other thing with that stuff too is like one of the things I try to tell people at the poetry nights was, because we'd get some people who are like, oh, I don't write poetry, or I'm not really much of a writer, and I'd let people select stuff that they like otherwise, or I'll have books of stuff for people to read around. But the other thing I'll tell people too is like, it doesn't have to be good. Like, I'm expecting it to be good, just have fun,
Yeah. Well, that's why this kid that came last week, I liked his story because it's, it wasn't it wasn't fantastic, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
And I like hearing just the weird shit that people think of. That's the best part. More so than, what the actual words are and the sentence structure.
Absolutely.
I like the context. But yeah, no, that's why we created this, is to see, if one person can join, then we did something. So yeah. So anyways, should we start? What do you guys? Last words.
I drank too much coffee, so I'm going to step away for like 3 minutes, but I'll be right back.
Okay. Sounds good.
Here, I think, he got it. So you're gonna is your thing tonight the part of your book?
What? Yeah, I mean, I wrote like a thing that I was gonna read off.
Okay. The interaction thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna just. It's literally 3 small paragraphs that I wrote, and then I just
Oh, I
needed
see. I
some
told
help.
you, even with this last minute story, I kind of overdid it. I didn't do any paragraphs. I just did. Here, I'll try to show you
No,
something.
that's fine. It's yeah.
It's just
Oh my god. Oh my god, that's so long.
when I start, I really start, and it's not like good as far as like the writing. It's literally I was just pulling stuff out of my memory to like.
Okay,
It's
we're gonna
more of
let
a
you go
story
first then.
as opposed to like a properly written.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll let you go first though. Get all
Oh,
those.
yeah, of course. That's I was telling you. I need to start like. What's the prompt for next week gonna be?
I don't know. I thought after we read all of our stuff, we could discuss what it would want.
Okay.
Because I had some ideas, but
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay. So I'm going first.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's not. I literally.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying. I sat in my room last night and remembered the story. I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna go with. So I'll probably like remove or add in stuff that I haven't written. It's just on my fucking notes in my phone.
Yeah.
So this is the story of fucking Bob, the fucking ukulele player, is what you have to call him.
Okay.
No, but his name really was Bob, the ukulele player. He was fuck it, I'll just go. So when I was 18 or 19, I was working the overnight shift at a shipping warehouse. I didn't have this part in, but in Sacramento, I worked in West Sac at the UPS. So I was always loading semi trailers. Was pretty much my job, just overnights. I think it was like 11 p.m. to something a.m. So that was about 20 minutes from where I was. Well, that was like 30 minutes from where I was living at the time. But on the way there was Davis. So I can skip these parts because I kind of described what Davis is, but since we know, what I wrote about Davis was that it's basically a city that's kind of shrunken down to the size of a town. There's always kind of something to do downtown. And I used to hang out there all the time when I was younger. So then I wrote, because of my work schedule, I've become fairly isolated from my friends. You know, you can't go out at night because you're working, but then in the daytime you're sleeping. So I was always looking for just weird, random shit to do at the time. One day I had an idea. I still don't know how I came up with it, but I decided I was going to start busking. I was going to start taking my guitar to downtown Davis and playing guitar and try to make some spare change. Obviously, and I wrote this too. Obviously, I didn't need the money since I was working. I think I just thought it would be a fun excuse to play my guitar. Plus, any money I made would be extracurricular, and I could spend on drugs without feeling guilty about spending my money from my paychecks. So every day, about 4 or 5 hours before my work shift started, I would stop off in Davis. I'd find a spot to sit and play my guitar downtown. I found a spot on the first day that I liked pretty quick, and that became my spot. I never lied and said I was homeless or anything. What I put is I would always set my guitar bag open on the ground, and I would write something quirky on a notebook in Sharpie. I remember one time I literally wrote, "Give me money or I might cry." And then, let's see, in my guitar bag. After just a few days of doing this, I started learning funny little things that I consider to be kind of like psychology-related quirks about the people in the town. For one, anytime anyone or any couple walks by with their small child, if that small child stops to watch you play, the parents are going to then watch the child watching you for a couple seconds, and then they're going to give you money. My thing that I put was I always thought maybe they felt obligated because I entertained their kid for a few seconds. The second thing I learned was that college-age girls in groups of friends, that was like automatic money. I said, I don't know if they ever actually read my signs, but it seems like they always assumed I was in some hard situation. Some girls would bring me food. Some girls would ask if I needed anything. Some girls would do all of the above, plus give me money. One time, a pretty girl bought me a beer that she had taken a drink out of. It was a Modelo in a glass bottle. I hate Modelo, but I was excited to take the drink from her. She gave me the drink and then offered me her phone number, which I took. Although looking back, I assume she was drunk because I did in fact text her the next day and she did not seem all that excited that I had her number. So I stopped texting her pretty quick. My theory about the girls was always that I figured because I didn't look hitting my desk. I figured because I didn't look like a typical homeless person I'd get. You know what I mean? Like I didn't look like some homeless people do. I don't know how to word that politely, so fuck it. But I always thought maybe I was less intimidating to these girls, so they could kind of do their good deed, you know, by helping someone that doesn't look as sometimes intimidating as homeless people do, I guess. And I always thought of that too, because it was always when they were in groups. It would always be whenever a group would walk by, one girl would break away from the group and come back to me. Is usually how it would go. And I'm like, oh, now you can go back and tell your friends that you helped this guy or something. But that was always my little theory about that. So that's kind of the context. So then so anyways, one day I was sitting in my spot. I was playing guitar and I was smoking cigarettes. And a homeless man approached me. He looked like Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Just that he had a beard. He had the backwards hat and he had the long hair down to the middle of his chest. But this guy was wearing a long trench coat. He walked right up to me and just said, "You got any weed?" I said, "No, do you?" And he said, "No, I was trying to find some." At this point, I started to stand up. And when I finally reached my feet, he asked if I smoke. And at the time I did. So I said, yeah. He said, "All right, I know where we can get some." So he turned around to start walking, you know, implying that I should follow him. And wherever it was he was going, I'm losing my spot already. He stood there waiting for me to pack up my guitar and follow him. At this point, I thought, fuck it, I'm down. I wrote that Davis, I've always thought of Davis as like a safe town. I was never really worried about anything there. So we start walking, and he starts telling me about how we're going to find Bob, the ukulele player. That's exactly what he called him. Because he might have pot. I can't remember the full conversation we had. I just remember that his name was Christian and that he was telling me about Bob, the ukulele player. So after a few minutes, we walked down. It's kind of like an alleyway is how I have it described, even though I don't think Davis really has alleyways. It's behind just like two big buildings that have multiple like restaurants or stores or whatever. It's downtown. An alleyway between two buildings, and there we found Bob. Bob was standing around behind a restaurant. So Bob was an older guy. I'd put him in his 50s at the time. His hair was gray. It was messy. It wasn't long, but he definitely hadn't gotten a haircut in a while. Bob was wearing nurse's scrubs, like full-on nurse's scrubs, like the ugly blue color scrubs, like shirt and pants, like the whole getup. He had New Balance running shoes on, were of course old as fuck, and he had thick black frame glasses. And of course, he had his ukulele that was strapped on. It was hanging behind his back at this point. Christian asked Bob if he had any pot. Christian obviously knew Bob, and I would assume that Bob knew Christian, but I can't say for sure. That little detail will come back up pretty soon. Bob said, "Hold on, let me check." Some of these words I'm paraphrasing at this point, but I remember like the general gist of the conversations. So Bob grabs his backpack off the ground and he pulls out one of those little Altoid mints tins, those little rectangular tins. And he said, "Let me see if Mother Nature has blessed us today." He would open the Altoid. He opened the Altoid tin and there was weed inside and he was excited. He acted like he didn't know if he already had weed in the tin or not. But also looking back now, after getting to know him, he really might not have known from time to time if there was weed in the tin every time he opened it. So Christian pulls out his pipe. We're standing there smoking. I tried to give Bob some of the cash that I'd made from playing guitar, and he said he wouldn't take it. And then he went on to say something about it was a blessing from Mother Nature. You can't put a price on that. I was like, well, you can't argue with that. So I don't remember the exact conversation we had at this point either. I just remember that Christian had to go. I don't know what the fuck Christian had to go do, but Christian had to leave. So now it's just me and Bob. Again, I don't remember the small talk we were making. But I remember he started calling me Scooby. That was always what he called me, was Scooby. So then he starts playing his ukulele. And surprisingly, he's a really fucking good ukulele player. I was like totally impressed. Eventually, he asked me if he could play my guitar. And then I remember he told me he likes to play guitar. He just plays the ukulele because it's smaller and it's easier to carry around. So I said, sure. I pulled my guitar out. I handed him my guitar. And whereas I don't remember all the exact conversation, I remember it was pretty clear that Bob had some some mental stuff going on. And then I wrote, I don't know how to word it very politely. He was pretty all over the place. He was basically exactly what I imagine most people think of as a stereotypical homeless guy wandering around downtown in nurses' scrubs. I would say eccentric is a good word. He was kind of scatterbrained, and conversations with him weren't very linear or entirely coherent. So now, anyways, I hand him my guitar, and he sits down with it. And as he sits down with the guitar, I swear to God that his entire personality and his posture changed. He seemed like a completely calm and normal dude at this point as he's holding the guitar. He starts playing this song that I would later learn was a song called Vincent by Don McLean, which is a song that I now love. My grandpa loves Don McLean. You know, he sings that American Pie song.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts playing this song perfectly. It's like this guy's an incredible guitar player. Then he starts singing it. And it's crazy. Like, it's wild how good of a singer this guy is. He sounds, what I now know is he sounds just like the fucking song. So it was crazy. So then I put a side note that says, more recently in my life, I've learned that many people, including but not limited to Charles Manson and Lana Del Rey, believe that music is totally completely magical. And after hearing of that idea, and then after thinking about Bob playing the guitar, I kind of think that music is at least somewhat magical. There's got to be something there. So I was completely into Bob's performance, is what I put next. Then once he finished, he hands me the guitar back, and his posture and his personality revert right back to fucking Bob. Like, he goes right back to being kind of scatterbrained and not really knowing what's going on. He thanks me, and he calls me Scooby again. So now we're toward the end of our hangout session, where I'm not remembering the small talk we're making at this point. But to get back to the little details I mentioned earlier, after this, I started seeking out Bob every time I went to Davis to play guitar. So I'd find him, and I would greet him, and he would greet me as Scooby, like usual. Sometimes I would bring pot to share with him. He would always talk about Mother Nature blessing us again. Sometimes he'd pull out the Altoid mint tin, and there'd be no weed in it, and he would make some comment about how Mother Nature must be mad at him today, and that's why he has no pot. I remember one of the times I went to see him, and he asked me who I was, like straight up asked me, "Who are you?" And I said, "It's Scooby." You know, I thought I was Scooby. And that's when he told me that he calls everyone Scooby. So I learned that he doesn't remember who I am from day to day, so I keep going back, and he's basically re-meeting me every time for the first time. And then it's kind of an uneventful ending. I just kind of got busy, stopped going to Davis so often, just kind of lost track of him. And then I didn't write this part down, but I remember one time, a couple of years later, I ran into him like one more time. And, you know, he didn't remember who I was again, so we just smoked a bowl, and then I went home or whatever. But, yeah, for your descriptive words, I tried to get the description of Bob with the scrubs and the gray on cap.
No, it's good.
That's one of the best interactions that I've ever had, was meeting Bob, and then meeting him every day for the, you know, day and day and day until we stopped hanging out finally. But yeah, he was an interesting guy for sure.
Man, I love that.
Cool.
Yeah, I spent a couple of months like hanging out with like the Davis homeless folk. They're all really nice for the most part. Bob is just the one that I remember the most. Christian, I never saw again. I don't know what happened to Christian. He was the first guy I met, and then I just never really saw him again. But Bob was always easy to find, so I always would spend a couple hours with Bob. There were some days I would get mad because I'd be trying to actually like play guitar and like make some money or whatever. But Bob would cramp your style entirely. He didn't give a fuck. He would just be like, "Oh, you know, come up." And it was always fun times though.
What happened to him now?
I have no idea. The way I wrote, the last thing I wrote was, I always wonder what happened to Bob, the ukulele player.
Oh, mystery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you never know. I have no way of finding out.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
I like
Cool.
I like the descriptions and the yeah, that drew me right into Davis. Like
Yeah.
without
If it
I could just feel like where I was, you know. That's good.
if it helps, the spot that I specifically sat and played guitar at was right in front of Chipotle.
Okay, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that completes the whole picture for me. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Cool.
Did you ever run into there's this other I don't know if he's actually homeless, but he's kind I think he's schizophrenic. He's had some kind of mental health issues, but he would walk around the streets of Davis and he would sell these joke books. They were like self-printed, and he was so cool. Like they were really cheesy or just non sequiturs, but because of that very nature, it was like the most outsider art kind of just guy printing off this stuff. And then half of the book was like a biography of himself and how the band Rush started speaking to him through the TV set as a kid. It was just delightful. Like, I loved it so much. I don't know if you ever ran into this guy or not, but he was a Davis character that I met once.
No, I can't remember a guy ever playing a joke, but that sounds awesome though. And that's like the best part about Davis is just the fucking people in Davis are always like,
You never know what's gonna happen down there, who you're gonna run into.
yeah, but it's always safe. It's kind of what I always think of it too. Like, I'm never really in fear of any danger in Davis.
Yeah, it's like a fun kind of kookiness.
Yeah, it's like the fun of a city, but without the threat of like a downtown, like Sacramento or fucking San Francisco. You know? Yeah.
You're probably not going to get stabbed, except for that one year where that was happening.
Oh man, I remember when that whole thing was going on.
Yeah, that was wild.
All right, who's going next?
All right, Matt, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next.
If you do, you don't have to. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
Okay.
Let's see. I sent you guys two things. I'll read one of them. I'll go with my grocery store one.
That one I saw and I was curious about just because I told Annie at a grocery store a story that I had come up with like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, cool. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, so this is the background of this is this. I worked at Rayleigh's in a few years, and it sucked, and that inspired this. So I'm just gonna go for it. All right, so this is grocery store. The grocery store is full of vegetables, fruit, and sundries. I work here now, but not forever. I should be a college student, but after my first year, I got burnt out and I took a year off. Working here is a personal hell, a punishment for academic failure. The customers, the people, and their mundane aggravations are the Dantean torments of us poor devils in this suburban grotto. We all work long hours and most of us smoke. The grocery store is a crossroads. Long-term employees work alongside seasonal help and aspiring managers. With no aspirations for management, I fit somewhere in between the former two categories. Leaf is the lead supervisor on most of my shifts. He seems interested in making small talk with all the Karens that come through the checkout lane. He tells them about all the drugs he used to do as if he's putting on some kind of DARE program for suburban housewives. Everything but a needle, he says over and over again. I did everything but a needle. One day, another checker turns to me out of Leaf's earshot and says, "That guy's such a bitch. When I used a needle. His story sucks." When I first started working here, they made me cut my hair 3 times before they determined it was short enough to fit with the manager's sense of outdated propriety. I guess my manager would still have found the Beatles edgy. The store had just started allowing facial hair besides a mustache, and everyone thought it was a big deal. Before that, they'd really been cultivating the cop look, I guess. Granite Bay, where I work, is a real orderly town, waspy to the core. In a place where most everyone is upper middle class on the low end, and if they're not, they pass for it. Unbeknownst to me, in a decade, they will allow visible tattoos and long hair, but I will not be here then. If I am, I will kill myself on principle. I push the carts and wonder how I can possibly apply this skill to anything other than this job. I fantasize about being a rock star or a famous music journalist, the next Hunter S. Thompson, giving interviews about my time here. Believe it or not, I actually used to work at a grocery store, I tell the attractive interviewer who is completely enamored by my charm and wit. Cart duty is the worst in summertime. The hot sun bakes the black asphalt and the heat rises to meet you. It works up a tremendous sweat, especially around your balls. In the winter months, when the rare rains come, it's throw on a poncho and get out to it. It's much better than the heat exhaustion, though. I always like the rain. In high school, my buddy Mark told me he likes the rain because it looks like the sidewalk is crying. I didn't understand what he meant then. But there are some good things at the grocery store, too. Brie is one of the good things. We've had a strong connection since I started working here. She's been at the grocery store for a couple years more than me, and we share a similar sense of humor. Both in our early 20s, we have a mutual passion for punk rock and dumb stoner cartoons like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Bree has pierced tits, and she talks about this at work. I do not mind this. She greatly enhances the working environment. We make faces at each other behind the customers' backs and when our supervisors aren't paying attention. Autumn comes, and with it, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the worst day to work the grocery store. The whole week leading up to it is an assault on all that is sensible. Customer versus clerk and checker. Every aisle is trench warfare with no quarter, and the assailant is pushing a blitzkrieg against my sanity, and I am near retreat. We fill up the bags for the bastards and smile back at their plastic surgeons, and we walk them out to their expensive SUVs. They'd never guess we'd really like to just set this whole town on fire. Hundreds of people at once. We are moving as fast as we can. Eggs on top, cans on the bottom, anchored by heavy milk gallons, bread on the side, double bag it for the alcohol. That's precious cargo, my supervisor, Linda says. Linda has an outdated, curly 1980s hairstyle that reminds me of a triangle and always manages to keep a good attitude while working. I don't know if I admire her for that, but it does make the day easier. Sometimes someone transfers from one store to another, maybe temporarily just for a day or so to help when enough people are out sick or otherwise indisposed and one store can spare the help or someone wants the extra hours. Among the grocery store clerks, the Granite Bay store has a reputation for having the best scenery, and visiting clerks make sure to remind us how privileged we are. Yeah, there's a lot of MILFs here, says some clerk when a manager steps away. Other clerks agree. 3 out of 3 mail checkers agree. Granite Bay has the best MILFs. And it was true. With nothing to do but bag, ring register, chase carts, and clean up spills, ogling shoppers, and fantasizing about coworkers was what kept you going. It certainly wasn't the pay. For some reason, there was a higher concentration of attractive women in Granite Bay. There's a lot to see in the grocery store if you're paying attention. I pay attention to Bree often. Her short black hair and big tits, pierced tits, she doesn't mind repeating. One day she is talking about how her nipples hurt because she's wearing her sister's bars and they're bigger than her size. This immediately informs me for the first time in my life that not only does Bree's sister also have pierced tits, but that there are different sizes for nipple bars. One day, Bree invites me to a party and I decline for some reason or another. I regret it that night, wishing I'd accepted the invitation, sabotaged by a lack of self-confidence. I bet we'd get along really well. The summer wraps up and we mostly continue the same way we have at the grocery store. Nothing much changes other than the faces that pass by among the regulars here. By the start of the next school year, I decide to go back and get some bullshit degree just to hedge my bets, leave the grocery store and live another season. Bree and I lose touch after MySpace dies, and the next time I see her is on a camgirl video someone has uploaded to a porn streaming site where she's taking a shower and talking to an audience on the other side of the lens. I finally see her pierced tits, and they're even more spectacular than I'd imagined.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that.
I have to say, I'll preface this with I love these movies that I'm referring to, but it honestly reminds me of like a monologue intro to one of like the early 2010 like a Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist type of movie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can see the kid working at the grocery store and then he's describing. And I thought that was badass.
Thanks, man.
That's cool. It reminded me of when I used to work at Trader Joe's when I was in college.
Oh,
I
hell
worked there a year. It was awful. And so, but I'm curious, the store that you worked at, it seems like they were conservative with how you
Yeah.
looked.
Yeah, this was in like 2000 and before 2010. So
Okay.
experiences around that time that you were describing early 2010s movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that time they were like that thing about the mustache being the only thing they allowed was real. And so it was like me having to go get a haircut 3 different times. I worked at like
Oh.
yeah, I was so pissed off. I worked at like 3 different Rayleigh's and Bel Air stores, and yeah, the first time I kind of combined them into one in the story, but between Folsom, Granite Bay, and I think I worked briefly at one in Loomis. But yeah, they were super conservative at the time, like no visible tattoos, and you couldn't have hair like touching your collar. It was like 1970s kind of rules for a grocery store. I also got drug tested the first time I had I worked there, and I had long hair at the time, and they did a hair test even to work at this grocery store.
What?
Fortunately for me, I had never smoked weed in my life at that time. I've since rectified that mistake, but I had never at this time. But everyone thought that I looked like a stoner because I looked like a stoner. But
Dude, a hair test for a grocery store is wild.
yeah, it was. I got the vibe that they just didn't want me to get the job if they were doing
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Nuts. It's the only job I've ever had a drug test of that level for.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, when I worked at Trader Joe's, Trader Joe's is super liberal, but they, it was rough. It was like, I resonated when you were like talking about like, you're looking around and then it's like people are like fantasizing about one another. It's like when I was working there, it was crazy because a lot of the people they hire are kids in like high school, early 20s, and I was in my like early to mid 20s.
Mhm.
And I'd come in and then I'd hear like, oh, did you hear? No, what? It's like, oh, somebody fucked in the fridge. Like it was just like some crazy story. And then it was strange because there was so much favoritism, and they ended up telling me like, okay, we're not going to give you a raise because you don't smile enough and we can't have any depressed people at work. And I was just like, I'm like the goth girl. So I'm like, excuse me. So then I ended up quitting like the next day because I'm like, that's crap. And then there was like another situation at the same time where this girl that I know, like her sister died. And then they were like, so when are you coming back? Like, we can't have you depressed at work. And I'm like, okay, this is
fucked.
So I grocery stores it's rough. There's some weirdos out there, but because, I live in LA, you work with some pretty interesting people. Sure. So I remember like, one of my coworkers was the guy that did, what is it called when people do sound for a TV show? They hold the mic.
Whatever
Yeah.
that is.
The boom mic.
Yeah, that was his sole job for Seinfeld for all 10 seasons. He had done that, and then he had retired and then started working at Trader Joe's. And then I had this like one coworker, he never told me this, and I only found out years later. He had always said, oh, I just work small jobs here and there to like pay for his family. And then I think it was like last year or 2 years ago, I started watching Seventh Heaven.
I grew up on that show.
Yeah, so did I. So I was like, because it's so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous the things that they put in that show. And I was watching the show and I was like, I know that guy. And it was my coworker from Trader Joe's. He had apparently been in Seventh Heaven and he just hadn't disclosed it at all. And he just told me that he had been working at a pizza parlor for most of his life, but no, he was actually on Seventh Heaven. So, but
that's wild.
Grocery stores are something else. And I do love Seventh Heaven because it's so ridiculous. The things that I don't know, Rob, have you seen that show?
No, I only know of it because Jessica Biel.
Yep.
She was in the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so whenever that gets brought up, Seventh Heaven gets brought up. And I've seen like the goofy little Instagram videos of the wife confessing that she smoked pot and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's like, it's a lot of that.
Was it like a Christian show?
Yeah.
That was like a mainstream show too.
Yeah. It was a show that like promoted like
that's wild.
Just Christianity, like being, good for God, no sex, no drugs. And
they cast Jessica Biel to get that message across?
Yeah.
It
was like her leading role. There were a lot of big actors in that show, and it was just so funny because, I remember, it was like one of the characters, like he thought about like having sex at his girlfriend's house. And then like the brother found out and was like, oh no. So then the brother ended up getting like the whole family over to the girlfriend's house to like stop him. Like it's ridiculous the lengths that they would go to.
We should We should change our theme here right now and just start doing episodic, like weekly reviews of
The seventh heaven.
episode. Yeah, an
Yeah.
episode of 7. We'll start next week with the pilot. We'll review it. We'll move on.
But it's like funny because I'm pretty sure there's like almost 10 seasons of it. Like it started in the 90s and then went through to the 2000s. So you see the changes of the characters like within their styles, because the times are changing. But yeah, no, Jessica Biel, she plays like the bad girl. She's a basketball player. It was just, yeah, it's such a good show. It's so funny. It's so, like there was a whole episode where one of the sons, he got angry at like one of the kids at school, and the moment his mom had pulled up to pick him up, he was getting into a fight with some kid, and he gave the kid the finger, and the whole episode was about how you shouldn't do that.
Man.
It's so good. It's so good.
This has unlocked so many repressed childhood television memories for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been rewatching it the past like year or two. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's so funny. No, it's like
I've got to give that a rewatch. That sounds
yeah.
phenomenal.
No, and then there was like an episode where like one of the because there's like 7 children. There's 7 children, and then there's the 2 parents. It's like a whole thing, and then they live in a house that like the church gave them.
Very
so
nice.
there's so many like scenes happening at once. So there was like a scene where like one of the younger daughters, she brought home like a homeless girl, and then was like, "Can we keep her?" You know, like. You know, and then they're like, "Oh well, God wouldn't want that." Like all the episodes end up with like them at church and like the dad giving a sermon. It's crazy, but yeah, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch it just for the laughs, because the level that they go to is just insane.
It's out of control.
Yeah, like it's always like, you know, like I would say there's always one kid that like wants to have sex, or like sex is being pressured onto them, and then that whole episode revolves around like, no, not before marriage. Like that's bad.
Man, I wish sex was being pressured onto me nowadays.
Same, yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Just like so funny.
That's hilarious. I'm surprised. I don't know. I guess I'm not, because you said it was like 90s, early 2000s. I'm kind of surprised that was like God.
It was on ABC Family, I remember.
And
It
PAX TV later, I think.
Yeah, no, it was massive. I remember that. And then I remember, so what happened is I think they had like 6 or 7 seasons, and then in real life the actor who played the father, it came out that he was a legitimate pedophile, and so then they were like, we have to axe him from the show, and then they like did, and then they continued on without him. I think I haven't seen that far yet. I think they might have like killed him off or something, but I don't know.
He's on an episode of Always Sunny also.
Is he?
Yeah, he's Dennis and Dee's biological father in like
Oh,
the
wow.
second season or something. Yeah.
I mean, I remember like they would get every big actor at the time on that show. I remember seeing an episode where they got the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC on there. Like they were just throwing people in. And it was like a scene where I think one of the daughters went out on a date with one of them.
I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like there's episodes where like if a kid lies about something, it's like all about, oh, you shouldn't lie. But they make it like dramatic. Like I think there's an episode where one of the daughters, she lies about where she's going, and then like there's this big car accident that happens because of it. So like the moral of the story is like you shouldn't lie because your friends could get into a car accident and die. It's so
True.
they really just like throw it on you. But yeah, I mean, if we ever wanted to like watch an episode just for the laughs with commentary, that would be great.
Yeah, that sounds hilarious. We should just we should try to write our own Christian themed show. I grew up going to church. I could bust out a couple bangers, a couple good episodes.
I mean, what would you say?
I don't actually know. I went to Christian school up until like 6th grade, and then I went to church.
Me
like,
too.
Yeah, like up until I was like late teens. But by the late teens, it was kind of just a social thing. We had a youth group in town that I would go to. And then the K through 6th grade, that was just kind of my mom was like a very young mom, and she didn't have a lot of money, and she was like breaking the bank to send me to the school just because she thought, I think the way she thought of it was just like, what is the best thing I could do for my kid being a single mom? You know, at the time, Christian school, all the good kids go to Christian school, shit like that. It was still good though. I still have a lot of my best friends from there. It's funny because my best friends that I've had since kindergarten, they're super wealthy because, you know, you meet them at like a private Christian school. Of course, they're going to be wealthy. So I've always been like the odd man out as far as like, I think I told you about this when we get together and talk about summer plans, you know, one of them like studied abroad in England, and I'm like, oh, I worked at a gas station. Like, so I never had any plans. It would be easy though. All I would have to do is like either hit up an old friend or like, I'm sure if I opened a Bible like one time, like all these memories would come flowing back into me, and then I could write, and then I could write like the episode of I don't know, we'd have to call it like 11th Heaven or something.
11th Heaven.
Yeah, it'd be like our unofficial like sequel, kind of like not fan fiction, but you know when they make like fan films that are like there's that there's like a Friday the 13th one. It's like made by a fan, but it's not actually a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in 7th Heaven, there's an episode with Jessica Biel's character.
How long is she in that show?
Oh, I mean, the show went on for so long. I feel like when it started, she was probably in like 7th grade. And then it goes like all throughout high school to college and like adulthood. So she's really young. But there's an episode because she's kind of like, I think she's like the oldest daughter. So she's very prized within the family, and she's a basketball player and she does really well. But then what ends up happening is like something happens with her basketball team that pisses her off. So she decides one night to go trash the gym with like toilet paper, and then she ends up getting like arrested for it, and then it ruins like her whole life, and her family doesn't trust her anymore because she trashed this gym. And then on top of that, throughout the whole series, they're all really good friends with like the local cop. So he's in like a lot of the episodes, and he kind of like, you know, tells the kids what they should and shouldn't be doing. It's
on a quick side, Andy, I know you still have to share yours really quick. I think you said it was shorter than ours, so I'm gonna squeeze this in now. Just because
yeah.
So she gets arrested for like TPing the gym.
Yes.
So that's weak stuff. When I was in high school, my buddies and I got really into like vandalizing houses and shit. And like the level that we were getting to was and I didn't partake in this specific story. It's just my favorite one that my buddies ever came up with. I was there for it, but it was their idea, so they got to do it. So you know, when it's garbage day, you got to take out the big trash cans out front. So we would do that. We just terrorized people in our town, like people that we didn't even know. Just find a house. Cool. We get their trash can. It's full of trash. You take it over to the side yard where the hose is. You fill it up with water, and then you take it to the front porch and you lean it up against the front door, so that if the door, you know. So then we have a buddy doing that, and then he starts ringing the doorbell over and over again. And the driver who's sitting in the car by the sidewalk, when he sees all the lights in the house come on because you're waking them up, you know, he yells, "Let's go." So then we take off. And then the presumption is that they open the door and the trash can full of the trash and water pours into the front, into the living room. There was one time, you know, in front of all the Walmarts, they've got those blue poles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those blue poles are just plastic coverings on top of cement poles. So every Friday night, we used to go to our Walmart in our hometown in Dixon, and we'd take all the Walmart poles, and we would put them in the back of my buddy's 2004 Mustang. So we'd be driving down the road at like 1 a.m. with all the poles sticking out the windows of the car. And then we would find there was one person's house that for some reason we just decided, we don't know who they are, but that's the house. So every Friday we'd go throw the Walmart poles into their backyard. Now the Walmart poles at the Dixon Walmart are bolted in because of us. And then there was another house we decided to also terrorize. There's a green belt that was behind my buddy at the time's house. And on the green belt, the walking path, there was a metal trash can. It was covered, or it was like a cement like fixture, and then inside of it you could pull the lid off and take out the tin like metal trash can. So we would take that trash can out full of the trash and we would just throw it into this person's backyard. Every Saturday night we would do this. And then after like 3 weeks of this, we came back and the trash can was like chained down with a padlock. So my buddy went to his garage and found his mom's like metal bolt cutters or something, and we cut the chain off and threw the trash can into the bed. Oh, it was good stuff. We just terrorized people's houses. One time my buddy, he was dating this girl. She was very sweet and innocent. We were like juniors in high school. She was very, I don't want to say like behind, but she was very innocent. Seventh heaven-ish, you might say. And some kid in like band class was talking to her, and somehow somebody made a joke about masturbating in class. And my friend's girlfriend was like, "Oh, I've never done that." And then this guy was like, "Oh, you know, I could he was like trying to explain to her how to do it, which is strange. And my buddy did not take a liking to this, and so he Matt texted me and he said that's why he's stuck on the worst face. Matt's thing went down. So what?
Oh, Matt. Oh, I got the message from Matt.
Yeah, his thing went down. But okay, so he told, so basically this girl, or my friend's girlfriend, some guy in class is trying to explain to her this weird stuff. So my friend doesn't like that, so he goes and he shit on the kid's front lawn. I got him again.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, he's back.
Crazy.
But yeah, so getting arrested for TPing, I don't believe it.
Well, it was Seventh Heaven.
Yeah.
All right. Let me read this thing and then we'll wrap up for the evening and we can talk about next week as well. So mine's like really, really short. It's like a paragraph. So to give you guys some context, so in my story, what is this? I'm echoing.
I think you're getting it.
Okay. Okay. So in my story, what eventually happens is the main character, or I guess the vampire, he bites the human girl, and she, like, much to her surprise. And so he, after all there's like drama that ensues because of that, and then he's like, "You're mine now, like we're gonna get married in 3 days." And she's like, "Okay, great, like I love you, whatever." So
that's how it always works.
Yeah, he's like, "You're mine now, like we're to be wed in 3 days." And she's like, "Okay, sounds good." So this is like the beginning of the wedding scene that I wrote. Now I have a couple of names listed in, so you just to tell you who is who. So in the story, the main girl, she has always felt that like she's been here before, and she sees like a woman in the corner all the time, and it like comes to light through the story that she is the reincarnation of this vampire's dead wife. I wrote this and then watched Dracula, and then I was like, they took my idea. I had no idea. So the dead wife, her name is Clara. And then the main vampire, he's in a band, like a big heavy metal band. And he has like a pet goat named Billy. But Billy can turn into like a big like Baphomet devil man that like fucks chicks.
Is that your Peter Steele character?
Which one? Not Billy. Bill. So there's the Peter Steele character.
The one in the band.
He's in the band.
Yeah.
And then he has a pet goat named Billy. And Billy goat man, but Billy is not in the band. He's just like he can turn into a goat man and like do his own thing freely. He just lives with Everest is his name. That's what I gave him. And then in the band, one of the members is named Alex, and he's a vampire, and he is dating this woman, Lena. And Lena is this woman where, I don't know if you remember the scene in Beetlejuice when they go to like the other world, and there's the receptionist, and she's like, I think she has like blue skin or something and has like her wrists are slit. This woman, Lena, kind of looks like that. She's got like a New York transatlantic accent, very 50s and pretty, but like she has blue skin and her wrists are like slit, but she like doesn't notice it at all. Anyway, she has this like crazy relationship with this vampire and is in love with him. So those are the characters that are in this scene, but it's taking the viewpoint is from my main heroine. And then there's a couple of words, as I said, where I don't know what else to put. So I wanted to just kind of like chat with you guys on like what would sound better. So, okay. So, and here's one of the words. So I said, taking the ancient blade. I don't like the word ancient. I know, Rob, you said archaic. So we'll just like, we'll work with that after and see. Okay, so taking the ancient blade, he grabbed her hand, making a sharp cut into her delicate skin, doing the same to his own. Their hands collided together, infusing the blood into holy matrimony. She looked up into his dark eyes, his face serious and sober. There was nobody but her. She could faintly hear the demonic priest speaking in the background. Her mind was intertwined with thoughts of him and this new world. Her chest was beating rapidly, and she knew after this that that would be it of her old self, her old world. There was no looking back now, though realistically, there was no looking back many moons ago. She could feel a cold breeze blow through her black lace gown, her long hair neatly pinned back with jewels, slightly swaying against her shoulders on this cloudy day. Looking around, she didn't know anyone here except for his bandmates, Billy and Lena, of which the undead woman was crying hysterically, much to Alex's embarrassment. She had no familiar family or friends during this pivotal moment, only him. But it was only him that mattered. The large ruby ring he placed upon her finger sparkled against the sky, and it all felt too familiar. She was going back to where she once was. You'd think she'd be upset wearing Clara's ring, but she had always been her, and now the ring was placed upon its rightful home. That's all I got. So what I wanted to workshop was, I didn't like the word ancient. Like I could use it, but I feel like I'm trying to picture this scene where like they're getting married and he takes this kind of like this big blade. I didn't want to say dagger because they're cutting their hands and infusing blood, but I wanted to describe the blade in a way that was like kind of metal, but I didn't know what else to use. I thought of like ceremonial, but I didn't really like that word. So if you guys think of like a cool, like a metal term for something blade, I don't know what else to use. And then lastly, in my last sentence, I said that the ring was placed upon its rightful home. I didn't know if I should use the word home or owner, but I felt like owner kind of felt off because it's supposed to be like the ring of like her past life is coming back home to her.
If your choices are home and owner, I'd say home is better than owner.
I mean, if there's like a completely different word, like that works too, but that's like what had made sense to me when I was writing it. But yeah, that's what I got. So
I like that. I think this scene really draws you in. Like,
okay.
It makes me want to read more and know more about the characters and like what's going on. Like I know you gave us some context, but it makes me want to
it's a whole thing. I just this was something I like just started working on, and I was like, oh, let me just like throw it in this week, even though there's like so much you guys are missing out.
Do you want the replacement for ancient or archaic? Do you want it to mean like it's old?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, I guess like to me, when I think about the scene, I'm thinking about, okay, here's this like giant man and he's picking up this like big blade.
You could say primitive.
But I don't know. I kind of like archaic because
I like
it sounds
archaic.
old. Like I guess I do want it. I want it to sound old, but I don't want to sound it. I don't want it to sound like it's like constantly used in a ceremonial way. Just like it's like this like crazy old dagger. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think of archaic until you mentioned that, so I could I'll write that down.
You could always just pull a Lovecraft and call it Eldritch. Kidding.
Yeah.
As long as the words are cool, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why I used to be a nerd for words. Like my favorite word used to be pestilence, and I used
What
to
is
tell
that?
it's like I think it means like a plague that spreads quickly.
Okay.
It was in the name of a song from First to Last back in the day when I was really into them, and I used to tell girls like, "Oh yeah, this is my favorite word, pestilence," thinking that it was gonna like impress girls. I also used to yo-yo, and I used to bring my yo-yo to school thinking that was gonna impress. This was this was middle school, so I got over my love for words when I realized that words and yo-yos do not get girls. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I still think there are words like archaic archaic just sounds badass to me.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, that is good because so the plot twist to this is so she meets him and then it's kind of like Shrek where he lives in this like fairy tale community that like only the government know about. And so that's why I said there's like a demonic priest because they're all like demons and you know crazy creatures of the sort. And they had been there for quite some time. So I guess archaic would make sense to that. But I do try to add like even though like the story has this kind of serious sexual tone to it, I do try to like add in some jokes. So that's why I created this like Lena woman who is this like 1950s transatlantic speaking woman and you know, she's like literally perfect, but when you look at her skin, it's like completely fucked up. And she's like with this like heavy metal guy. So it's just like, and then she's also like an alcoholic. So she just says like whatever's on her mind. And then it's like he, you know, because he's also in it, or her boyfriend's in the band as well. And he's kind of like this mean looking vampire. It like doesn't make sense for the two of them to be together, but they are together. And then I do have a scene where like Lena is like sucking him off. And then like the main characters in my story are like watching this, like what is happening right now? But she's like drunk and she's like, yeah, it's fun. It's been a good journey and it's still going. But yeah, so that's all we have for this evening. We can talk about next week.
Yeah, I just want to know what the prompt is going to be because I am going to have to start on this story earlier than the day before if I want it to actually.
Okay, it's okay.
Like
well, we can. So I have my long list of prompts. We can do one where we describe something again, or we can do one where like we're setting a scene for a story. So we can do something where you know describing a person and their motivation, or just describing a person or a character in detail.
I like describing people.
Yeah, I know you like. I know you like all the descriptions. That's fine. I mean, I love, you know, utilizing my words in that way. You can, okay, I have one that says describe a smell scene. Like you walk into a room and there's like a smell. That could be quite interesting to see where that story peters off to. Or just like describing like an unpleasant scene, or you could describe the future in 1,000 years from now if you teleported. Let's see. I wrote some tonight actually. It says you could write about a scene where there's like a lot of a specific color. So like say you pick green. It's like you talk about the color green, like you entered somewhere and there's a lot of green everywhere or something. I don't know. You could write about, okay, you could write about a human turning into an animal or a bug. I mean, I don't know what you want to do. I said you could describe a monster, you know, like who they are, what they're like, what they are and what they're doing. You could describe something sweet, but like in all ways, like a piece of candy or like a date you went on or a lover, like anything that's like classified sweet. That would be pretty amusing because everybody.
What do you want to do? Because I chose this week, so I'm pretty sure.
That's kind of okay. I kind of like describing a person and their motivation because that could go in various ways. Because you want to, like, you don't want to add anybody else into that scene except that one person. And then, like, maybe you could set the scene as if, like, you're with that person, you're describing that person, and you're trying to figure out, like, what they're doing or something of the sort. You know, maybe you see somebody that's doing something eerie. So you're writing about, like, okay, I saw this man with brown hair and describing him in detail. And then he was doing this, but was he really? I don't know. It could go in many different ways. That could be fun. Let's see. We did describe an apocalypse. You know what? I feel like describing something sweet could be the best one because I feel like you would write about a date or a lover.
Honestly, yeah. I
feel like that could be fun. Like
I think I told you last week, like romance stories are like my fucking guilty pleasure.
Yeah, no, I think actually that would be kind of fun. Describe something sweet because we could have it literally anything that's sweet. Like you could write about a piece of fruit or you could write about a person. Like that, I think that would be really fun. So why don't we do that? We're going to describe something sweet for next week and I will make a flyer and
in parentheses you have to put underneath like it'll be describe something sweet and then like whatever
yeah
that means to you,
oh yeah,
like
yeah
however you interpret this.
Yeah, no, I'll fill it out so people are aware like what sweet means, you know. I mean, it could be anything like a song.
Jail had a good time with this one. He wrote
something. Oh, really?
He sent me something. I'll send it to you later. It was like he didn't finish it.
Okay.
And it didn't even really make a lot of sense. He said he just kind of pushed it out last minute because he forgot to write something. So he was sending it to me like last minute, a couple minutes ago, or before we started.
We'll have to send him the link earlier next week. And then hopefully he'll attend. Did we get any viewers tonight? Or it's just
No. Last week was our big pop-off so far. Last week was, with Jay. And then
I'm just gonna keep going. I need this practice. I don't care. Like
it's a grind. It's a grind. Yeah. I have nobody. I've had like 3 or 4 people tops on one of my Saturday nights, and that was like a big hype for me. Like, so
I might actually start pitching this to my astrology school that I'm in because there are some interesting people there that might be interested.
As long as they don't have shitty quality phones.
No, they don't, because I'm on Zoom with them every week, and they're all like on computer. Okay. So we actually looked at your chart a couple of weeks ago. I threw you.
Yeah, you told me I have to get the fuck out of Woodland. Which is very true.
My teacher said. That's what my teacher said. They now call you serial killer Rob because.
Well, you tell them all this weird stuff, like he likes true crime and sharpened saw blades. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
No, but they think it's funny. They think it's great. They think, yeah. No, I told them to check out your profile, and I said a lot of nice things about you, aside from the fact that you have this true crime page.
Yeah, damn right.
You make saws. You work at a saw factory.
Your page is fantastic, by the way.
Dude, I was just telling her earlier, I feel like I'm Trojan horsing everybody with the way I made the page, right? It's all the shit that I post. now all of a sudden here's me with like TikTok style like captions, and so I felt
cool though.
I made the
Yeah.
second one, and I was like, honestly, I mean, I don't care. I always just it started off as a TikTok. Like over a year ago, I made a TikTok because my little sister was like, you need to make a fucking TikTok, and I was like, okay. So I made it. I didn't know what to do. Swear to God, I put up one of just like a clip of a Manson edit, like I do like an interview, and this thing gets like 2 million plays in like a couple of weeks. And I was like, oh, I guess the internet is into this stuff too. TikTok booted me real quick. I didn't make it like 2 months on TikTok. So for some reason I thought, well, maybe Instagram will be easier. And Instagram has been a bit lighter.
Yeah.
But then they hit me with like the strike for something. They hit me with a strike. It's super strange. I posted a Jeffrey Dahmer meme on a story. Right? It was Dahmer eating at a Five Guys restaurant. And the caption was him eating a burger, and he was saying, I don't think there's actually Five Guys in this.
That's delightful.
And so
Wait,
Instagram,
do you still have that? I love that.
I can find it.
I love that.
Instagram struck me for it, and I was like,
Oh.
do they not look at your grid? Like that stuff's all over my like grid, but for some reason when I put it on the story, so
Yeah, it seems a little arbitrary.
yeah, I always think they do that kind of on purpose. The rules are always kind of not so clear, and then if they catch it, they catch it. If they don't, they don't. See, I don't know. Either way, I'm trying to avoid turning the page into a straight up compilation of like reels and shorts. But if I do, I don't really care. I just noticed as soon as I started posting that stuff, I've lost like at least like 30 followers, which I normally don't. I usually will catch like if I drop followers. The only reason I've been dropping followers or noticing it, I never used to notice it, is because I was complaining about they turned off my recommendability on, so I can't gain new followers. So usually every day, you'll drop like 5 to 10 followers, but you'll gain like 10 to 15 on a normal day. But now I'm not gaining any, I'm just dropping them. So now it's noticeable. I never even wanted to do this YouTube thing. I wanted to hit like somewhere between 10 and 20,000 followers before I started doing the YouTube thing. But then once they turned off my ability to be pushed to non-followers, I thought, well, fuck it, I might as well start now. And plus, I don't know. At this point,
Yeah, but you're not alone on that. I feel like that's what's happening to most people. Is that they're losing followers?
Like I said, I'm on this subreddit. I think it's just called Instagram, and it's literally people complaining about like I'm pretty lucky. There's people that will post screenshots. They'll comment something on like straight up like their cousin's post, and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, I'll see you next Friday." And Instagram will pull the comment and like say like, "Oh, this is against our terms of service," and it's like obviously it's glitches, but the problem is that there's no one to like actually reach out to and say, "Hey, can you fix this?" It's it's a computer. I always love how it's AI, it's a computer, right? They're the ones that strike you. But if they strike you and pull down your post, you can submit a review to that same fucking computer that struck you in the first place. It's like, well, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
It's, you have to have people. It might be a shitty job. You might need to pay a lot of fucking people, but you need people looking at stuff like that.
Do you pay for the blue tick? That actually might help you.
No. One thing I remember I told you last week, I thought it was funny that, they turned off my, I cannot be discovered by new people, they can't touch my stuff. So to test it out, I paid like $10 for advertising. Then it was okay. When I paid money, they advertised me.
Yeah.
People's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you pay for the blue tick, it might help you. But then again, you just said that after May 16th, something might kick in.
That might be the day that I go back to normal. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to pay Instagram.
That sounds like a story. The day I went back to normal. Yeah. I like that.
I would have a good day. I went back to normal story.
We'll have to arrange that sometime. All right.
Cool. This was fun, guys.
It was fun. Thank you for coming. Otherwise,
yeah.
Just wrong.
This is really cool.
Okay, so I will be making a post that we will post later this week. Write about something sweet. Make it interesting. Make it nasty. Whatever you want to do. Okay, well then I will see you guys online.
Yeah, I'll hit end stream here. So